Saturday morning, everybody. It is February 1st, 2025, and welcome back to LTL Media here live on this very gray, dingy New England, Massachusetts morning. Crappy weather. It's not that bad. It's not that cold out. I mean, 32 degrees here in New England. You know, we're usually out in t-shirts, but as far as the weather itself, rainy, overcast, kind of crummy out. So I am here. I am here getting myself better. The voice is sounding a little bit better this morning, day by day, getting my health back and feeling better. But I haven't done a morning wake up show in quite a while. I do have to work my fucking pretty shitty day job today, this afternoon. So I wanted to get some content in today and talk about yesterday's hearing. Yesterday, Karen Reed's hearing. Really nice to see everybody here this morning. I got some Go Squad members. I have some moderators here, and again, you know, we'll try to get this going this morning. But I wanted to spend some time and go through the beatdown, the verbal beatdown from Mr. Alessi yesterday on Hank Brennan. It was phenomenal. I got to kind of pop in and watch some of it on my break yesterday at work and catch up a little bit last night. And that's definitely the portion of the hearing that I want to go over because I feel like it's the most important. What they talked about during that portion is, Richard Green and Hank Brennan and the Commonwealth trying to disparage Richard Green as an actual expert in extractions. And from what I can remember, and I go back and think about it, didn't he use like 5 pieces of software to extract the 2:27 a.m. Google search by Jennifer McCabe, the Hoslong to Die in Cold? Didn't he use like 5 different versions of software, and Celebrite being one of them? So 2:27 a.m. did happen. It factually happened. And we find out that out of almost 5,000 Google searches, what is the one that is flagged to be deleted? Obviously, the 2:27 Hoslong to Die in Cold. Okay, so let's bring up an article here. We'll start this out with an article, and then we're going to get into that motion hearing. I'm going to try to rest my voice as much as I can today, but I am getting there. It's getting there. It is getting there. It's getting better, feeling better, and feeling stronger, and trying to get there. Yeah, that's a good point too, Becky. And I forgot about this. Yeah, he did use Whiffin's own little software and actually used it and proved that it got brought up on that software as well too. So yeah, anyway, let's get into this from Boston 10. The big question yesterday was Richard Green and quote, the Hoslong to Die search, off the record notes. Obviously, we're talking about Gretchen Vance, and we heard a little bit about ARCA yesterday as well too. But I love watching Bob Alessi. I think it's a perfect matchup for Hank Brennan. I think he verbally beats him down every single time they're in a hearing. And when Hank Brennan leaves, I feel like he's just the whooped schoolboy walking home. The whooped schoolboy walking home from the verbal beatdown. All right, so let's read through a little bit of this. In December, a judge granted prosecutors requests of access to off-the-record interviews, notes, and documents involving conversations that Reed had with Boston Magazine reporter Gretchen Voss. So it says the Karen Reed case returned to Norfolk Superior Court on Friday for a hearing to discuss, among other issues, the defense expert's analysis of the controversial, quote, Hoslong to Die in Cold search and whether it should be included in the new trial. That's a very key, pivotal search. Is the bottom line, you just have to look at it and say, why would you Google that at 2:27 a.m. if none of this happened to John? If you're all saying that you didn't hurt or kill John inside of 34 Fairview that night, then why would you have to make that search at 2:27 a.m.? The retrial remains months away, but outside the court, Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, said that the team will try to shut it down before it gets going. Quote, there's a lot to be a very robust motion of dismiss from us. It is in the offing, he said. And I believe they're going to hear oral arguments on that on the 11th, which is really strange. It's really strange because what do we know that's coming up on the 10th? Trooper Proctor's part 2 to his disciplinary hearing. And I still think that they're going to park that aside. They're going to go, well, we've heard both sides of the argument. We'll take all this into consideration. And I truly feel that they're going to park that away and try to make that discipline hearing go away until after Karen Read 2.0. But I could be wrong. I'm no expert, but that's just my gut feeling on all that. Reed is accused of hitting her boyfriend. All right, let's go into this. A search of Hossalong to die cold made by Jennifer McCabe, a friend of O'Keefe's, has been a major point of contention in the trial. The prosecutor maintains that the search was made at 6:23 a.m., shortly after Reed arrived at the house on Fairview Road outside the O'Keefe was struck and lying in the snow, which is complete bullshit. I mean, you're at that point. You have EMTs there. You have police officers there. Why would Karen turn at that point and go, oh my God, please Google how long to die in cold? Absolutely makes no sense. I think that is further on her mind at that point. However, the defense expert Richard Green contends the digital evidence shows that McCabe made the search at 2:30 a.m. and that McCabe has helped cover up who really killed O'Keefe at the Fairview home, where she and others attended a small party earlier that evening. The prosecution wants Green's analysis thrown out. Of course, it's a key pivotal point in this case. The court Friday, prosecutor Hank Brennan called Green's claims factually untrue and that has no methodology behind his analysis. Yeah, he only used like 5 different pieces of extraction data to get that information, along with Ian Whiffin's his whipped up program. The defense defended that their expert qualifications and pushed for its inclusion. The second issue discussed in the hearing centering around whether journalists' off-the-record notes should be included in the upcoming trial. In December, a judge granted prosecution requests for off-the-record interviews, notes, and other documentations involving conversations that Reed had with Boston Magazine reporter Gretchen Voss. In Friday's hearing, Voss's attorney petitioned to reconsideration of the material, arguing that release impairs her ability to accurately report on news and has wider implications of the First Amendment protection of the media. Quote, requiring Voss to turn over these confidential notes would damage First Amendment interests more than it would benefit the public in achieving justice for the criminal defendant, Robert Bursch said. Reed has spoken to multiple media outlets on her case, sometimes in lengthy sit-down interviews. Prosecution have requested portions of the content from other media for their cases as well. No, you shouldn't have access to that. What a reporter and someone talks about is their business, and that definitely infringes on First Amendment right. Boston Magazine turned over some materials from its interview, including audio where off-the-record conversations were redacted, and Judge Beverly Canone said that those redacted materials suggest that the account she gave to Boston Magazine may have been different in certain respects from the evidence of the trial from other accounts she had given. However, the redactions prevent the Commonwealth from fully understanding the defendant's statements. A lawyer for Boston Magazine and Voss has previously said that reporters have the right to keep confidential information private. It does. You have that right to do that. That is a First Amendment right. It's a First Amendment right. I wouldn't want people getting notes to conversations that I have with people if I'm sourcing an article or writing a particular piece about someone. Those are my notes. It's my private notes. It's my private conversations. It goes on to say Reed will be retrialed in April for murder. Well, we have to be seen. Remains to be seen, because there's going to be a big motion to dismiss. Do I feel like Judge Bev is going to dismiss this? No, she was pretty adamant yesterday about keeping this on schedule, but it remains to be seen. All right, let's get to the testimony and watch Bob Alessi do an absolute beatdown of Hank Brennan. And we're just going to skip ahead. I don't really want to go through the hour of argument about Gretchen Voss's notes. I felt like it's not germane to what's going on here, but I felt like the meat and potatoes of everything yesterday was that conversation about Jennifer McCabe's Google search. All right, let me just bring that up and we'll start playing through this. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit here because I do have to work this afternoon. All right, here we go.
The Commonwealth's motion to exclude defense witness Richard Green's debunked opinions. So I have received a great deal of pleadings on this. So the Commonwealth's motion, and there was a affidavit
Morning, everybody.
attached
Make
or
sure to
report
smash that
attached
like
from
button,
Mr.
please.
Whiffen.
Nice to be here on this Saturday morning with all of you.
Defense has filed an opposition, an affidavit from Mr. Green, and then another affidavit from Mr. Green that doesn't, they're two separate affidavits. And the affidavits are clearly different in substance. So I'm a little, I don't know what you want me to think about that, but why don't we hear the Commonwealth on its motion first?
God, does this guy just give you like a glass spine every time he gets up? I'm just, oh, I gotta hear him. I gotta listen to
May it
him.
please the court, we filed a motion to exclude Mr. Green as a witness regarding 2 points. The first is a claim that a witness's phone made a search for a phrase to the effect of how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. And secondly, to exclude an opinion that there was some type of intentional deletion of that entry. This case, I propose on behalf of the Commonwealth, is appropriate for a Lanigan hearing. At that Lanigan hearing, I suggest that Mr. Green should testify and answer questions about his affidavit and his opinions that he would like to subject the jury to. In fairness, the government would call an expert as well. If this case, as the court proposed, potentially scheduled for next week, Mr. Whiffen would not be available, but Ms. Hyde would be available, and I would call her as a witness. Mr. Whiffen, if necessary, is available later in the month as a witness. My suggestion is there should be 2 witnesses, Mr. Green and 1 witness from the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth witness will be able to explain.
Oh, and don't worry, Bev already ruled on this. She said she was going to rule on it by Monday, but she already ruled yesterday and said that Richard Green is a qualified expert and will be able to testify at trial. So super verbal beatdown.
The science, the data, forensic science, and methodology. And Mr. Green, I suspect, should be in a position to explain his ultimate opinions because what we see in his affidavit is an absence of methodology. Mr. Green has filed 2 affidavits in this case. They are very similar, but there are very significant changes to those affidavits. And it stands out as very interesting, the changes to the affidavits, when I look at them. On number 3, he changes his characterization of what his profession is. He originally calls himself a forensic technician, and then the updated affidavit cites that he's a computer network technician. Now that is odd because usually a professional knows what they do for a profession. Simple explanation of what he does stands out. Also stands out when using technical terms. They either were wrong or changed from the first affidavit.
I do have a poll at the top. Who's worse, Lally or Brennan?
Talks about the download as a full file system extraction and then changed to an Apple iOS full file system. My point is that when you look, this isn't simply misspellings or poor grammar. There are terms of art that are wrong between the affidavits or changed.
Speaking of poor spelling, isn't there was a document that he can't even spell his name on? Can he spell his last name incorrectly? I thought I saw something about that yesterday.
When you're using the terminology of an item that is a forensic tool, such as gray key, it is spelled wrong throughout the affidavit. And so it seems to me that Mr. Green's affidavit had some assistance in building it. And the tone of the affidavit supports that thought. When we look at Mr. Green's affidavit, it is not that of a forensic examiner, it's that of an advocate for the defense. When we look at his affidavit, there is quite a bit of advocacy, insinuations and surmise and conjecture and claims that have no factual basis, but there is little on methodology. In ways, it is a very dangerous affidavit.
Hands down.
Make assaultive comments that a user did something, purposely deleted a very important phrase, how long to die in the cold, without any forensic data or evaluation or validation. Similarly, when we look at his affidavit, it is replete with accusations suggesting, but never proving, never providing fact, that there was some type of manipulation or tampering with evidence. Now, this is not the role of a forensic examiner unless there is proof, in fact, that happened. But when we look through his entire affidavit, we don't see any attachment of raw data, but we don't see an updated report. We don't see any viable information that in any way supports his speculative accusations. And so the defense, without having an opportunity to Mr. Green prior to trial, stand behind these statements under oath. We'd like him simply to come before the jury, make these salacious comments, and then leave it to the government to knock it down. And that might be a common view in the transcripts of this case, but the Commonwealth does not intend to simply let evidence come in that's not qualified. that's not factually sound and then go knock down glass houses. That is not the approach the government's going to take to this case. Mr. Green is going to testify. He should have a report that is factually based with methodology supporting these claims, these narratives that he's proposing. Considering testing in this case, there are certain tools that are used. The defense wants to propose that there's some type of race that Mr. Green looked at or used more tools than a Commonwealth expert.
Yeah, I'll show the let me show that right now. So right here, here is the motion for the Commonwealth. Let me just make sure it's on the screen. Probably a little bit hard to see. This was the motion for the Commonwealth to exclude defense witnesses. If you look at the written notes on 13125 right here, after hearing and reviewing of the written submissions, I have determined, nor I can decide that this motion without any further hearing. So she's already decided on it. Essentially, she doesn't need to have a hearing for Richard Green. She's essentially saying that he's an expert and he'll be allowed to testify. So that was her handwritten notes yesterday. She already ruled on it.
Analogy is that of an X-ray. Anybody can take an X-ray, but it takes an X-ray the X-ray to interpret the data. In this case, Mr. Green in his affidavit proposes that because he used a number of tools, because he has a number of X-rays, that somehow there's significance to it. But what
Melissa, I'm going to probably say, I'm going to let him in.
That information, and it is clear in his affidavit that
it's by those handwritten notes.
He cites two opinions.
I mean, essentially everything is made it in from the first trial, you know, with that whole bullshit hearing of bringing Dr. Russell back, going through all that huge charade. This is just all a big charade from the Commonwealth. I mean, essentially there would be, you know, there would be a, I wouldn't say like a little riot, but it's almost to the point like you've already let all these people into the first trial. It's already on the record. And then you're going to come around in trial two. Oh, wait, it's a new trial. But all that testimony and all those things that are on the record, it's all going to be there for appeal, even during the first trial. So to come in and allow an expert to be into the first trial and then to turn around and go through this whole process again, you've let them into the first trial, but now you're going to turn around and say they're not qualified enough to be here. And let's think, a lot of those witnesses last time were just kind of flown in really quick, did their quick voir dire, and then they were up on the stand. This time it's been more attention to detail, and they've had more time to prepare. So how could you essentially turn around the second time around and say, yeah, these people aren't experts, when you're much more prepared and you have more evidence to prove that they are experts in these areas of these categories? All right, let's keep going here.
And it's based on Cellbrite processing.
Be sure that you let him
I'm not
testify.
going to go through all the little details that we dispute.
Excuse me.
Technical assault on each
My
point,
opinion. Wow.
The overall idea of
very
this
bumpy.
evidence is why this should be subject to a Lanigan hearing and why we are willing to call our own expert as well, so that the record is clear and the science and data is clear. Instead of doing validation or testing, relying on Cellbrite, what Mr. Green has done in section number 13 of his affidavit is step aside from methodology, and instead he cites that he called Cellbrite technical service. Now, this is the forensic examiner who's supposed to go through the process, and yet he defers it to technical support of Cellbrite. Technical support in Cellbrite, he relies on to say that this artifact, where this search is stored, is appropriate. And he remains standing on that foundation as why somehow there's some validation that this search occurred at 227. But then when he learns that Cellbrite, after actually doing analysis and study and updates and engaged in methodology and review, determined that the way that was assessed is unreliable and the program has been updated, which no longer shows the 227 search at 227, and I'll explain why for good reason, and I'm sure the court has heard this before. Mr. Green then denounces the very source that he relies on. And so on one hand, he's saying, I relied on technical assistance to Cellbrite, but then when they told me what I didn't like, I can ignore that part. He then defers to Axiom. Axiom, the government, the defense touts, is a separate source that reinforces the same point when clearly it doesn't. You can see in number 14 of Mr. Green's affidavit, he talks about the fact he uses these different programs because he wants to view data. That gets back to the X-ray analogy. He is viewing data from many different programs to say the same thing, but he never goes on to analyze it. What is troublesome about his affidavit in section 14 is he attempts to use resource material to convince this court that rather than methodology, these summary statements are something that the court should rely on. And so what he does is he takes an excerpt, page 7 of his affidavit, number 14, and he says that
God, bumpy
asks
audio.
him to use a manual describing the artifact as follows: that the artifact is in Safari suspended state tabs, and then has a last interaction date time, and the date and time of the current tab state when it was last interacted with on the local device. And so he's taking a piece of the manual. They don't introduce the manual, and he tries to use that to buttress that this search happened at 227. What you're not offered is that in the Axiom notes, in their artifact reference.
You know, the thing that I always laugh about is that this is all black and white data. It's all black and white data. You can't change black and white data. I mean, it's there. It existed. It happened. You know, and that's why I love like they always keep saying that like the defense is using smoke and mirrors to deter everybody from this case. But the Commonwealth continuously tries to use smoke and mirrors. And I go back to, and it's just simple logic in all of this, and I know I talk about this a lot. If you had nothing to do with what went on in 34 Fairview that night, let's just go back to the major players. Brian Albert destroys his phone, destroys evidence. Brian Higgins destroys his phone, destroys evidence. Jennifer McCabe, literally while she's on the stand in the first trial, Alan Jackson with black and white data in front of her, literally the Google searches that she made that day, the Hosslong, the Dying Cold, there's 4 of them, 227, 623, 24, and 26, I think it was, literally points to it and said, so you're telling me you made these 3 searches here because when Karen Reed comes back to the scene, she asks you to Google that, but the one that's literally black and white, that's above it. That's above all those searches. The same thing, Hosslong, the Dying Cold, you're trying to tell me that you didn't make that. And she literally looks at Alan Jackson in the eyes and says, no, I didn't make that. That is like the biggest lie. It's black and white data, dude. It's right there. It's right there in front of you.
Guy for
Unreal.
Safari suspended state tabs, which he's referring to. Now, really, for the analogy that the defense tries to make. The Safari suspended tabs contains the current state of each browser tab in Safari that is currently open on the local device. The date and time are only updated when the user interacts with that tab on the local device. Since these are local tab states, results from the artifact may contain an earlier date and time compared to the results in the Safari history artifact in multiple devices on one iCloud account. By Axiom itself, it makes clear that an artifact in a tab can reflect a time that is much earlier than the actual search. And this has been presented to the court. We've provided the trial transcripts of Ms. Hyde and Mr. Whiffen. When a tab is open, many tabs can be open. It is open at a particular time. And if that tab is reused, the original time will imprint. And so certainly Mr. Green knows of the Commonwealth's argument. He knows of the opinions by Mr. Whiffen and Ms. Hyde because he takes shots at them or makes mention of them in his report. And yet he does nothing as far as validation to consider the arguments and dispel them. He does nothing in his affidavit to address the methodology. Quite to the contrary, when you see Mr. Whiffen and Ms. Hyde's reports, it isn't baseless opinions and advocacy of a side. When you look at their reports, it is replete with methodology, fact-based, information-based, the study of the particular device at hand. The contrast.
Wasn't Kerry Roberts in there today or yesterday? Can someone confirm that? I thought I saw some reports that Kerry Roberts was sitting on the side with John's family. Is it true? Is Kerry Roberts there? Wow.
Between the actual use of methodology that is
Wow.
reflected in Ms. Hyde and Mr.
Unreal.
Whitten's report. And
So
this
brazen.
affidavit is so clear. Now, there are 2 opinions that are proposed pursuant to this affidavit. The first is the claim that How Long to Die in Cold was somehow included at 227.
Says you are witnessing bad lawyering, deception, gaslighting, and a waste of Massachusetts taxpayers' money. I completely agree. And we're going to get Nan on the program soon. We're actually talking about doing something together. I know she had a phenomenal program or live session with Mike from the Young Jerks. I definitely want to get her over here and touch on some of these subjects that we talk about. Karen Reed. I also want to talk to her about Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia. Maybe we'll get into some of the Idaho 4 stuff. So maybe we could do a variety show, but definitely going to work something out. Probably going to have her and Todd McGee on with at the same time. So I think that would be a really good grouping, and I'll be reaching out to her again soon to schedule that show. But thank you for watching. Thanks for jumping in. All right, let's listen to Hank. Hank the Tank here. Again, if you're just coming in, make sure to smash the like button. I am in the bedroom today. I do have to work, so I couldn't make it over to my studio. But we're going to go, like I said, we're just going through some of this testimony from yesterday. I think probably the most important meat on the bones portion of the testimony about Jennifer McCabe's 2:27 a.m. Google search. And we'll be back in the studio soon, I promise. Still just kind of resting the voice, trying to get better and back to health here. And just trying to get excited about 2025. I was very excited as the turn of the year. I felt like this was going to kind of be my year, and we got beaten down by some sickness here, but we'll be back soon. We'll be back soon. All right, let's keep playing on here, players.
The only effort that appears in this affidavit by Mr. Green is in section 15, where he did a low-level analysis of the wall file. Now, I am not an expert, and that's why the court should hear from Ms. Hyde or Mr. Whiffen and Mr. Green. But a simple understanding. Wall file
The audio, huh?
can contain information as a repository.
Thank you, Melissa.
And the description or misunderstanding by Mr. Green of the wall file is clear in his affidavit. In fact, he implies that there were 3 searches in his affidavit, number 16. Let's look at this phone that there were 2. Surprising, his second opinion is an attempt really just to create confusion, to disparage, and to make claims that are factually untrue. It's necessary to have this claim because, number one, it doesn't have any resonance.
Jeez, this is choppy audio, huh?
Leaving somewhere, somehow. Not an uncommon. The claim, or the opinion number 2, the defense would like the jury to hear, is that somebody somehow, whether it was a person, presumably the witness in this case, or the police somehow manipulated the phone. I dare say there's no evidence to support that. And yet, in an affidavit under oath to the court, in an attempt of advocacy, this witness is comfortable and willing to promote a claim that has no factual basis. If a
Oh my
witness,
God.
an expert, is going to promote in an affidavit a claim with no factual basis, we should not trust, without vetting that witness, that their other claims have any merit or value. In opinion number 2,
Hank Brennan reminds me of someone. If there's a boiling pot on the stove, and you literally look at the child and you say the pot is hot, you're going to get burned if you touch that. Hank Brennan will sit there and try to describe it and tell you that the pot is not hot, and it's okay to touch it. That's clearly his tactics here. Don't worry, it's not hot. It's not going to burn you.
To say that the McCabe cell phone could have been manipulated. Not that it was, not that I did a study, not that I have a fact. It could have been manipulated, then rehashed after manipulation with the PDF being modified. Wow. It's an extraordinary conspiracy in the world of forensic science to be able to accomplish all of those tasks. So if he has no basis in fact or methodology, no good faith basis to make this assertion, why is he? Why is he? It's because the claims he makes in opinion number 1 are so scientifically and forensically unsound. This is a tactic to confuse the issue.
Black and white data, dude. It's there.
Of this baseless claim by Mr. Green. It is suggesting that a witness with no other evidence whatsoever was involved in a conspiracy to murder somebody. That's the implication that he wants the jury to be confused by. Otherwise, there'd be no other reason to make the suggestion.
Tries to use those like hard, those hard words. Untrue, baseless claims. Just trying to throw all those big, heavy words out there to convince this judge, to convince this jury when there is a jury in the room. Again, he's the type of guy that, You know, if you have a chocolate cake in front of you and the kid's going to grab the chocolate cake and eat it, you know, he's going to say, you know, we know that it's a fact that you would get chocolate cake all over your face, you know, if you're stuffing your face with chocolate cake. But he would turn around and try to convince you to, even though if the chocolate cake is on your face and all over your face, he would say, yeah, but the child ate the chocolate cake, but there really isn't any chocolate cake on his face. That's literally his tactic here.
That is an extraordinarily harsh claim when you don't have any facts.
Sky is blue. No, it's
Now,
not. It's
how can
black.
one cause manipulation? There is scientific ways that could be explained how manipulation could occur, but we don't see any of that in this affidavit because it didn't exist in this case, because there was no deletion or manipulation by the witness. There was no manipulation by the police who processed this phone. If there was,
Not
there
at all,
would be
right?
some proof.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
affidavit
That is
speaks
perfect.
volumes by the
You go
absence
through your
of
wallet,
fact,
help you look for it.
data, and science. Mr. Green does nothing to try to demonstrate that there was user deletion on this phone or that there was manipulation by the police. When you look at the data in the phone, the question arises, why is there a 624 search and not a 623 search? The phone stores the last entry into the tab. It's not just science, it's common sense. Common sense that Mr. Green ignores. And so not being able to prove user manipulation because it happened, he turns to police manipulation. And he says that there can be a problem where the hashes don't match, but the problem is the hashes do, they match. He complains that he did not receive the PDF when he received the download. And because there was a production at different times, he then sprints out to a different universe and suggests that somehow it must be because there's manipulation. And again, doesn't prove it. There's actually ways that a real forensic examiner can look at the PDF, the gray key file, and the phone and determine whether manipulation occurred. There's a program called XMP and another one called Magic. The Commonwealth's expert witnesses went through that process. No manipulation. But Mr. Green doesn't even go through the process to disprove his own theories. If he used methodology, he could simply dispel his own claims. It's either he doesn't understand the forensic technology to do that, or he chooses not to do it so he can just posit hand grenades throughout the case and let them resonate wherever they fall. In an attempt to create some doubt or uncertainty or merit some conspiracy, he lists a number of what he calls anomalies, which are really not anomalies at all.
Anomalies.
I could go through each one of them. I could give a difference of opinion. I could show that Mr. Green's anomalies have no basis in fact, but suffice to say, I think this should be done by qualified experts, and that's why there should be a Lanigan hearing. There is such misunderstanding of forensic science in Mr. Green's claims and anomalies. If he's going to make these assertions before it goes before a jury, he should sit in the witness seat under oath, as the Commonwealth witnesses should as well, and he should justify, explain to the court why he did not engage in methodology and how he has come to these extraordinarily baseless, inaccurate, and prejudicial claims. Commonwealth has to, the court rather, has to look at Lanigan and whether or not a hearing is appropriate in this case. When we look at the different non-binding factors of Lanigan, we look at number one, whether it has been generally accepted in the scientific community. The software has been generally accepted in the scientific community. So hasn't the effort of a forensic examiner, the expertise. And the defense complains in their motion, the Commonwealth has not properly addressed the methodology of Mr. Green. Well, the reason why is Mr. Green does not provide any methodology. So this is the way to address the methodology. Number two, the opinions have been or can be subjected to testing. Well, we see Ms. Hyde and Mr. Whitman's report directly contradict the assertions, the unsupported assertions of Mr. Green. There is no testing that his opinions have been subjected to. There is no peer review. There's no other alternative support for his opinions. They're just broad.
It's black and white data, dude. Dude, it's black and white data. It's there. It's on a printout. 5 extractions, 5 extraction software. And they use Ian Whitman's software as well, too, to extract it. It's black and white data. You can't change that. It is the number. It is the tab. It is the search. It's there. This is just so preposterous.
Baseless claims. Number 3, has been subjected to peer review and publication. Certainly the science, the forensic science has, the software has, but the interpretation and Mr. Green's interpretations, it hasn't been subjected to anything. In fact, it changes. Has an unacceptably high known potential rate of error. Hopefully see and read Ms. Hyde. And it's just a high level of error. It's gross error. It's total error. It's wrong. And is governed by recognized standards. Well, if you look at the history report that the defense filed as an attachment, it talks about a forensic examiner's obligations to verify, to test things that Mr. Green didn't do. Their own report that they offer in support undermines the idea that Mr. Green did anything to validate or support his opinion. And as we see from both Selbright, he does not follow the protocol. He does not follow Axiom or the guidance that they give him. He sidesteps both of them to give the opinion he wants to advocate for the defense. At every turn, positions of Mr. Green are not only unsupported, they're unverified. And so what arises from this subterfuge is that Mr. Green is really just a vessel, or an attempted vessel for the defense, third-party public defense. It is not lost on me, I'm not unmindful of the data on the phone being a search Holland Diane Nicole that occurred after 6 a.m. in that morning coincides with first responders' testimony that the defendant herself was asking these very same questions around that time about how long he could survive Nicole. Under the extraordinary broadness of circumstances and the depth of the amount of witnesses and information in this case, it is hard to think that that just happened by happenstance. That there is a inquiry, something forming in the mind of the accused is then shared with the witness, Mr. McCabe. And in response, she makes the search, which is entirely supported by all the credible forensic evidence. If Mr. Green is going to be witness in front of the jury, in light of the fact that he has no methodology and he's wrong on science.
How many times are you going to say methodology? Becky, thank you so much. Being a member for 3 months. Thank you for the support of the channel. So it's going to take a strong jury. Free Karen Reed. So corrupt. Well, hopefully we can just say this time around, the jury gets it. The jury gets it. Lawfare says, to all of you, good morning. I can't think of a better way to start my day than to hear Brian's passionate coverage of the case. He knows. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're going to do something soon, I promise. I'll reach out to you. We'll schedule something. Hopefully, maybe next week we can do something together. I think it'd be great. It'd be really great. All right, let's listen to Mr. Let's ignore black and white data, Brennan.
In addition to the fact that he wants to now advocate for the defense and accuse everybody and anybody without articulating who, just anybody other than the defense.
Excuse me.
You have to stand behind those claims under oath. And so I'm asking for a Lanigan hearing. We are not shying from our burden. We're more than happy to bring in a witness so the court can contrast the two. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and this is getting these hearings, bringing all these experts out there. This is just to completely beat Karen Reed down, to exhaust all of her resources. That's all they want to do, is they want to play this kissy face game, back and forth, flying in, back and forth, hearing this, hearing that. That's all this is. It's all this is. It's just a tactic by the Commonwealth to continually beat down Karen Reed and her resources. But the thing is that every time they play this game, it just drives people like us and people like you and channels that cover this case, that help contribute to Karen Reed's defense fund, to push harder, to make more money, to put money in that bucket. Because we know the truth. I mean, we know the truth. I mean, if you're not living in and around Massachusetts right now, I mean, I could probably go out on the street and ask, 100 people, and probably 95 of them are going to say Karen Reed is factually innocent. I mean, we see what's going on here. You might have that other 5 people that go, I don't know what you're talking about, because they just don't pay attention to local news. But I would probably say 95% of those people you ask are going to say Karen Reed is innocent. All right, let's hear Bob Alessi give Hank Brennan a verbal beatdown here. I love Alessi. I think he's a great match for Brennan. He's been literally smacking him during these hearings, and I always love hearing him speak. He's very passionate. Keep in mind, he's doing this pro bono as well, too, just to help.
Mr. Alessi?
Love it. God, when this guy gets up, so good. Probably not. He probably just tells Lally, go get my coffee. All right, let's keep playing here. The good part. So good.
May it please the court. Mr. Green is eminently qualified to provide testimony in this case with regard to the subject matter that has been challenged by the prosecution in this case, and that is with regards to the search of House Long to Die in the Cold that occurred at 2:27:40 a.m. on January 29th, 2000.
Bang, on the record. Love it.
Mr. Green,
Mr.
I want to cover the
Reed.
baseline for this hearing first. Mr. Green testified at the first trial. He testified without objections as to his qualifications.
And that was my argument in the beginning. Remember, I said he already testified in the first trial. I knew they were going to get all this on the record. We're going to talk about this again. There were no objections when he came in and testified on the first trial. So how can you turn around now and say that he's not an expert witness, that he has no methodology, he has no merits and no basis on any of this? You can't exclude that. It's already there on the record in the first trial. And that's why I said she's going to have to let him testify. All right, let's keep hearing the master.
He testified without objections to his methodology.
There you go.
Your Honor sat, obviously presided over that trial. Your Honor did not issue after his testimony any limiting or curative instructions with regard to either his qualifications or methodology, nor did the prosecution after his testimony stand up and ask for any such limitations or qualification. The baseline for his qualifications and methodology was established, again, without objection. And
whose phone?
They are being challenged now.
I was just waiting, Your Honor. They are being challenged now, but the reason I state that is because what Mr. Green has provided in response to this motion is even more detailed than what happened in the first trial. In Mr. Brennan's argument, he did not make one argument about Mr. Green's qualifications. Zero. So I'm assuming, because there's nothing in their motion that even goes into why he might not be qualified. So to me, Your Honor, that's a tacit concession, if not expressed, that he's qualified. And of course, he has to be qualified in digital forensics because there are.
And keep in mind, from what I understand, Bob Alessi actually has been around for a little while. He's just been more in the background. But I love the fact that they've brought him up now. Like he's saying, I think he's a perfect match for Brennan. He just verbally beats this guy down all the time. And I think you're going to see a lot of him. You're going to see a lot of him in Karen Reed 2.0 if we get there. Okay, let's continue here. I love listening to him talk. So
five other areas of digital forensics opinions and methodology that Mr. Green is testifying about that has not been challenged. So to me, it is rather odd right off the jump that there's no challenge to five other areas of data forensics, and there's just this challenge to one aspect of his whole testimony and opinions. I have provided Your Honor with two exhibits, demonstrative in support of my oral argument. Exhibit 1 is entitled Digital Forensics Methodology Regarding Subject Artifact, and Exhibit 2 is entitled Digital Forensic Product Tools Used by Witnesses. The Commonwealth has agreed to my use of those exhibits. They had some, I agreed to theirs, and I would like to, Your Honor, use those in a moment.
I agree.
The Commonwealth, in its oral argument, said 10 times just now that there's no methodology and that Mr. Green does not articulate a methodology. That is incredible to me because the opposition and Mr. Green's affidavit, in fact, are replete with the methodology. And here is the key, Your Honor. While Mr. Brennan challenges the methodology, none of his witnesses, neither Mr. Whiffen nor Ms. Hyde, challenge the methodology. Wow. As a matter of fact, in their two reports, neither of them even describe Mr. Green's methodology, nor do they challenge it. And of course they can't, because it's the same exact methodology that they use. And that's what I would like to go to now. Exhibit 1 is entitled Digital Forensics Methodology Regarding Subject Artifact, J. McCabe iPhone Data. And I prepared this. This is just what's in our opposition. It's in Mr. Green's affidavit. but it summarizes what the methodology is that we're talking about here.
I love people that want to win, and you just feel that with this defense team and this passion. God, I mean, this is the kind of attorney that I would want to be if I was ever an attorney. I mean, you can tell he loves the law. You can tell he loves to defend people and smear all this bullshit. He's just straight to the fact. And it's so inspiring to watch this attorney work. If I was ever an attorney, this is definitely someone I would want to be like. I love passion. You can tell he's just so passionate about the law and passionate about this case. It's amazing to watch.
What is that methodology? Step one, you receive, and this is to answer the question about what is the proper interpretation of
All pro bono,
the
too.
artifact in question that everybody agrees is the artifact. Step one, receive a full file system image of extracted data from the Commonwealth. For example, the defense received it on a USB thumb drive. That's undisputed. If you look at the reports of Ms. Hyde, you look at the reports of Mr. Whiffen, they all say they received a full file system image of extracted data. So step one in the methodology that everybody agrees to, everybody agrees that occurred. Number two, verify hash signature value of image file of data received. This is very important because hash values with regard to forensic data is extraordinarily important for it to be proper because it's the signature, the fingerprint that allows data forensic examiners to be sure that the data that they're giving is sacrosanct. It is not possible for manipulation. The Commonwealth just said that Mr. Green has hurled several accusations without a basis, one of which regards the potential for manipulation of data. And it's remarkable
Be right back.
that there is even an issue about this dispute. Mr. Green did put in his affidavit an unprecedented situation, and it is this. Mr. Garino, Trooper Garino, in his April 2023 report, which is an exhibit to our opposition, states that when he got the phone of Ms. McCabe, he used Celebrite UFED, a tool of Celebrite, to image the phone. And that's all he sent to the defense in the beginning. Why is that unusual? Because what happens in every case, without exception, is that the law enforcement sends the raw image, original data that has the hash signature on it. And the hash signature is an algorithm that produces, they call it, in this case, SHA-256. What it is it's a stamp of reliability that says, as soon as we got this data, we immediately processed it the proper way and put a hash signature so that there can be no contest. What the Commonwealth fails to tell the court, Your Honor, is and that leads any proper data forensic investigator to question the integrity of the data. If you turn to, Your Honor, Mr. Whiffen's very long December 2024 report, which is Exhibit 1 to the Commonwealth's motion on page 3, and I'm going to read it verbatim. This value is talking. Here's the key point. However, this requires authentication of the original hash value, which is not possible with gray key extractions, as the PDF containing the extraction hash value is unsigned. Therefore, this hash value could be used as a suggestion of authentication. That's all a fancy camouflage way of saying, Mr. Whiffen saying, I can't validate this hash value because of the way Trooper Garino processed it.
I'm having
Mr. Garino, Trooper Garino, the right way when he got it. And why is this of concern? Add to this point that's conceding that the hash value in this data cannot be validated. How did the defense get this? When Mr. Garino used the Celebrite UFED reader, all he turned over in the beginning was the UFED reader report. He didn't turn over the data, the full. So Mr. Green had to ask for the data. Then what happens, misstep number 2, Trooper Guarino only provides a PDF of the hash value. He used gray key, which was a mistake, because gray key, you can't get the original hash value. Mr. Green had to go back a second time and say, no, we don't want just a PDF. We want the full extraction. Finally, after the second time, the defense got the full extraction. And that's when we discovered that the validation was improper. It's not Mr. Green that is coming up out of thin air with these issues. This is the job of a data forensic person. And
Right.
the first principle is to see whether the data is valid. So not only does Mr. Green justify in his affidavit why there's a big concern over this, Mr. Whiffen concedes it on page 3 of his report. That starts, and I'm going to get to it, all the concerns now about the data and deletions. But that's the foundation for it, and it wasn't caused by the defense. It was caused by Trooper Guarino, who didn't do this properly. And with regard to the methodology, I want to go back to Exhibit 1. So,
You know, I just want to pause this for a second and just say, like, my heart literally bleeds every time I see Mr. Reed in this courtroom. You know, I see Karen's parents, her brother, and I just sit here and think, you know, like, this is how they have to spend their days. You know, they're in their later years. They should be out enjoying themselves, you know, going out and having nice dinners, maybe some vacations. And this is literally what they have to do now. And it's just, it really makes my heart bleed that, you know, that they have to be dealing with this right now. It's just, it's really sad. It just really, really hurts me to watch, because there's such nice people. And I've had so many great interactions with all of them. They take the time to talk to us, explain things that are going on. They tell us about their family life. You know, I've had really some really intimate conversations with them about, them growing up and just talking about their family. And it's really sad. It makes me just really sad. All right, let's keep watching the verbal beatdown of one Bob Alessi.
importantly, Your Honor, 1 through 4 of this methodology is undisputed by all of the data forensic persons. Mr. Whiffen, Ms. Hyde, and Mr. Reed, all agree on 1 through 4. They all agree that this is the methodology. Number 3, once you get the image of the file, each examiner saves the image to their lab storage system. Some use computer servers, some cloud storage. And 4, the methodology, you then process the data with appropriate tools. Nobody disputes that Cellebrite Physical Analyzer and Magnet Forensic Axiom are 2 of the many tools that are available to use. There's a dotted line that I put there, Your Honor, because 1 through 4 is undisputed by all 3 data forensic examiners. Number 5, and 1 through 4 is usually all one needs to do as a data forensic examiner, but Mr. Green went on to do more. Number 5, further processing of data as warranted, and he explains why it's warranted here with additional tools. So he then went on to use Sanderson Forensic Browser, ArtX, Belkasoft X, and then he didn't use iLeap, Ms. Hyde used iLeap. So it's important to line up the methodology. I just don't understand how it can be stated that there's no methodology stated. Not only does Mr. Green state it, we prove undisputed that everybody agrees this is what the methodology is. And that is what is so flummoxing as to why we're even here, because the methodology is agreed upon. What is disputed, Your Honor, is what are the opinions from when you apply the methodology and you apply these tools. So, interestingly, it is Mr. Whiffen who provided the most lengthy report in this motion. Mr. Whiffen only used 2 forensic tools. He only used Cellebrite Physical Analyzer and his own software, ArtX. That's it. What I'd like to, Your Honor, is ask if I could, please, if you could turn to Exhibit 2, which is entitled Digital Forensics Products Tools Used by Witnesses. And I just want to make sure Your Honor has that.
Okay.
So I prepared this demonstrative exhibit to show the tools that all parties used. And the purpose of this is to show how closely Mr. Green and Ms. Hyde match up up with the tools used
Pretty good.
and how insufficient Mr. Whiffen and Mr. Garino are. So if you look at the left-hand column on Mr. Green, and I color-coded it to try to make it easier, you see 7 tools used by Mr. Green.
7.
You see
I said
6
5.
tools used by Ms. Hyde in May of 2023. Many of her tools, exact same as Mr. Green. You see Mr. Whiffen, who used really 2 tools, but to be conservative, I listed them as 3 because they're just different versions of Celebrite Physical Analyzer. And then Mr. Garino, Trooper Garino, used 2 tools. But here's what's really important and I think remarkable that springs from this chart. Mr. Green did more, had a more encompassing and comprehensive review than any of the witnesses here. And back to Exhibit 1, he did 2 more steps in his methodology than everyone else. So 1 through 5 of the methodology, everybody did. 6 is analyze overall user activity, artifacts of interest, timelines of interest, and anomalies such as deleted data. 7, reporting as appropriate pertinent artifacts, other artifacts. For this motion, Mr. Green did 6 and 7, and no other witness did that.
So essentially, he did more steps. He did more steps than the Commonwealth to prove this theory. Well, to prove the 2:27 a.m. search. So he went beyond what the Commonwealth did. That's essentially what Mr. Lessie right now is explaining to the judge.
The issue in this case as to whose interpretation is correct is an opinion issue. It is not a methodology issue. And Mr. Green makes that very, very clear in his affidavit that the difference is in opinions. Interestingly, on the very key subject of whether the artifact and the interpretation of it is a difference in methodology, a difference in application of methodology, or an opinion, which is not the subject of a Dalbert Lanigan hearing. Opinions are not. Here's what Mr. Whiffen had to say about the issue. This is Exhibit 2 to our opposition. It's the June 17, 2024 testimony of Mr. Whiffen, page 1-10, starting on lines 14, the question. And what, if anything, did you find with regard to the web history artifacts? Answer, this is Mr. Whiffen. So the 2:27:40 timestamp was correct insofar as that is the time that is shown within the database. It was indeed a deleted record. But the interesting thing was why the timestamp said 2:27:40. And I did some testing on this and discovered the reason why 2:27:40 was actually listed in the database, even though that's not the time. Here's the key, in my opinion, that the search was conducted. So Mr. Green's opinion is, after applying the methodology that everybody agrees to, after using the same tools as every other witness for the Commonwealth used plus more, Mr. Green's opinion is, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, that that search and that record that everybody saw at the time of trial at 2:27:40, House Long to Die in the Cold, Mr. Green says it means what it says. The search occurred at that time. Now, the Commonwealth, in its recent reports, and they did this also at trial, they said, yeah, we see it. It's in there. Ms. Hyde said, I see it. It's not only in there in Celebrite Physical Analyzer. I used Axiom, just like Mr. Reed. Mr. Whiffen didn't use Axiom. Ms. Hyde said, and I'm going to point to it specifically, Axiom shows it as a 220, that search is a 224. In fairness to trying to get the best decision for Your Honor here, they disagreed, Mr. Whiffen and Ms. Hyde, as to whether that meant the search actually occurred at 2:27:40. That's the opinion that's disputed. So in fairness to the issue and accuracy, those witnesses diverted at the end as to whether what that timestamp showed, 2:27:40 a.m., did the search really occur then, or as the Commonwealth said, that it did occur at 6:23 in the morning? Mr. Whiffen says,
I love the fact that just keeps repeating it. 2:27, all, keep in mind, all on the record, 227.40, 227.40, 227.40. Just keeps getting it all on the record. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let me just take a quick pause really quick. Carla, thank you so much for the $25 on Cash App. I appreciate that. Helps supports the channel and goes right back into this channel so I can keep that wonderful, beautiful studio that I've built and keeps that studio open. Going to be doing some changes in there. I think I'm going to do some rearranging of the concept inside the actual studio room, just trying to come up with a better concept of it. But you know, we'll get it together. I'm just trying to rethink and retool the room, and I'll be back in there soon. I did a live from there the other night. It's just early in the morning, and I got to head out to work pretty soon here. So, all right, let's keep watching the verbal beatdown.
It's a difference of opinion because he says it's my opinion. The Commonwealth in this motion tries to make it seem like it's an issue of fact and that Mr. Green doesn't have any fact. Well, Mr. Green's got a lot of facts, and he also, of course, has an opinion.
Excuse me.
So what we have from these two demonstrative exhibits, Your Honor, is a statement of the methodology in Exhibit 1 that every witness agrees to. Not only is it Mr. Green put a methodology, but we prove up in the opposition that there's no dispute. What's interesting, Your Honor, and I think quite remarkable, is that neither...
You know, from Ireland, thank you so much. 6 pounds, 6 pounds. Thank you. I appreciate the super duper duper chat. All right, let's watch the verbal beatdown.
Mr. Whiffen, in his 40-plus page report of December 24, nor Ms. Hyde in her December 24 4-page report, neither one of them say Mr. Green's doesn't have a methodology. They don't say we dispute his methodology. It's the Commonwealth's attorneys that are making that dispute. And that is not appropriate. It's got to be your expert. And I think there's a reason why the experts of the Commonwealth are not talking about methodologies or saying there's a dispute, because it's objectively verifiable that there's not a dispute over the methodology. What is also important is what has happened since the trial. And what I want to do is give a baseline of the trial, because I think it underscores the two issues that Your Honor have in front of you: qualifications and methodology. And the qualifications, all I'm going to say about that is Mr. Green has 25 years of experience in computer forensics, and he has 18 years in digital forensics. And the 18 is only because digital forensics became a thing 18 years old. There can be no dispute, and I think that's why the Commonwealth didn't really say anything about it, is because if you lay down Mr. Green's experience next to Mr. Whiffen, Mr. Green testified 23 times as a qualified digital forensic expert in 7 different states. Mr. Whiffen, he's testified in 2 states, one of which was here, and he does not have anywhere near the years of experience. Here's another very important point: certifications. Mr. Green lists.
Leslie is my hero. I love all these names. Has become a new YouTube member. Thank you for supporting the channel, supporting the stream. Oh God, I love watching this guy work. It's just a masterclass, such a masterclass. And I think, like I said, we're going to see a lot of him during Karen Reed 2.0 if we get to the trial. All right, let's keep going here.
3 certifications. He lists an enormous amount of constant updating. And I just want to state a point about digital forensic experts. They're not like medical doctors where you see people with PhDs, etc. These are folks that keep updated because the computers change so much. So that's why you see such a great listing of Mr. Green in terms of his training in certificates, etc. However, if you compare Mr. Whiffen's qualifications to Mr. Green, and I'm again going to use Mr. Whiffen's own words with regard to his qualifications on his June 7th, this is again Exhibit 2 to our opposition, his June 17th trial testimony, page 1-6. Question, and this is a question from Mr. Lau. Now, with regard to your education in this area, what, if any, certifications do you have? Answer, no specific certifications. I've done the Celebrite coursework since joining Celebrite, but other than the 3-week course in Ottawa, and then again the 2-week course in Ottawa, those are police training things when he's a policeman. I don't have the SANS training or any of that kind of training certifications. Now, I'm not here today to challenge Mr. Whiffen's qualification. But how could it possibly be asserted that Mr. Green's not qualified if these are the qualifications of Mr. Whiffen? With regard to what has changed since the first trial, and I think this is incredibly important with regard to the methodology inquiry of Your Honor. I went through on Exhibit 1 the methodology that everybody agrees to, but the court doesn't have to take my word for it on this demonstrative exhibit because Ms. Hyde gives the best explication of the methodology that Mr. Green used because she used the same one before trial and at trial, but she's now narrowed it for purposes of a report, and I'm going to state and show exactly how. So Exhibit 4 to our opposition, Your Honor, is the May 2023 Digital Forensics Analysis Report of Jessica Hyde.
Uh-oh.
And in that report, on page 3, she talks about, under forensic analysis, that she used, it's the exact same methodology.
What are you, I thought you said Exhibit 4. Exhibit 4 is a transcript. It's a transcript of Ms. Hyde, but it's not a report.
Okay, my fault, we have different numbering, but I'll go to the transcript. I'm going to go to the transcript with regard to, yeah. So
I'm happy to look at the report if that's what you're referencing.
I'm
Where
going to
do I
go to the
find
report
it?
next, but if Your Honor's already at the, I can do it either way. If Your Honor is at the transcript, I'll go to the transcript right now. This is the June 14th transcript, Your Honor, of Jessica Hyde.
Yes.
Thank you. So we're just, and please keep in mind that in Mr. Hyde's 2024 report, that Mr. Whiffen's report that is now before you, Mr. Whiffen only used in his analysis now Celebrite Physical Analyzer and Ardex, his own tool. He only used 2 tools. Ms. Hyde, in her 2024 report, which I will get to, is now down to just using 1 tool, Celebrite Physical Analyzer, because she states that's the only one I was asked to look at. So the Commonwealth went and narrowed the request of Ms. Hyde to just Celebrite Physical Analyzer. And what is going
Let's get to this really quick. Alessi's Pros, $5. Is glad you're feeling better. Brennan embarrassed himself yesterday. He always embarrasses himself. He always embarrasses himself. And like I said, I think Bob Alessi is a perfect matchup for Brennan. He just gives him verbal beatdowns all the time, makes him his boy, and he should be the coffee boy for Bob Alessi. All right, let's keep playing through. I'm enjoying
here,
it.
it's very obvious. The Commonwealth is ignoring in its 2024 December reports all the other tools. Even though those tools show this timestamp of 22740 still, at that time, they now just ignore it and go to the Celebrite Physical Analyzer. That it's undisputed that Celebrite went back and changed it in the middle of the first trial with regard to 1 physical analyzer program. And then after the trial, the other physical analyzer program, they went and changed that and took it off.
Can you imagine Bob Alessi essentially talking about Brian Higgins' extraction? Oh my God. Why would he extract this certain data and hand that over to the police department and not give his whole extraction of his phone? Why did he go in and syncopatically take out certain pieces of information and only hand over so much? He would lay in to Brian Higgins. It would be fantastic to watch that. All right, let's keep going
But
here.
in contrast, Axiom, that Ms. Hyde used before, still shows the timestamp. It's undisputed that that's the case. And it's undisputed because they don't contest it, that Mr. Green went and looked at it in Belkasoft, Sanderson. He did a manual, he did a low-level analysis, and in every one of those tools, the timestamp still occurs. So now back to the transcript. Your Honor, I am looking at the question of, and this is, again, a significant point, is it better to use more tools? It's common sense. That's what Mr. Green says. That's what Ms. Hyde did the first time, but now all of a sudden she's down to just 1 tool that unilaterally removed the timestamp. So here is the page of the transcript of what Ms. Hyde had to say. Page 1-13, Your Honor.
Okay.
Line 4, question. Again, of Mr. Lally. Now, with reference to the tools that you use that you just went through, are those fairly common tools? Are those tools that are commonly used within your industry? Answer, yes. And what are those tools that she talks about above? Starts on page 1-2. Celebrite Physical Analyzer, Magnet Axiom, Artex, iLeap, and I later used Sanderson Forensic SQLite. Those are 4 of the tools that Mr. Green used, and he used more. So her answer is, Now with reference to the tools, are those tools that are commonly used within your industry? Answer, yes. They are commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard for other forensic examiners to use on mobile exploitation. It gets better for the defense. Next question, line 15. So different forensic tools, question. And why were you using the different tools? So different forensic tools have different capabilities and look at data a little bit differently. Skip down. Commercial forensic tools that they can only support so many applications. So they each work and support different bits of data. Here's the key point, line 22. This is Ms. Hyde's words, under oath. So it's important to use multiple tools so you can see the results from different data sets and be able to compare those results and enhance those with manual analysis. Next page. Question. And with respect to, and this will be the last question and answer, and with respect to using those sort of different variety of tools, Cellebrite to Axiom to Artex, etc., is that something you typically do as far as your normal process of documenting a forensic analysis? Answer. Yeah, that is very, very typical for me to process with multiple tools to ensure that I'm getting the most complete interpretations from forensic tools. Of course, you go beyond that with your analysis, but it's absolutely pertinent. And down below, he asked, can you explain the interplay of these tools in analysis? And her answer is strikingly the same as Mr. Green in his affidavit in our opposition. Her answer, the Sanderson's tool, which Mr. Green and Ms. Hyde used, but Mr. Whiffen didn't, is meant to look at specific type of data structures called the SQLite database. SQLite databases are very nuanced, and this particular tool allows you to take that database and explore it at a deeper level than the other forensic tools allow. Mr. Whiffen didn't use the Sanderson tool. So here we have Ms. Hyde, and in her report of 5/23/2024, her first report, and I'm going to get to her report here, she basically goes through and documents this methodology, and she documents the use of those tools. And she also documents that she saw the house long to die timestamp 22740 in every single tool that she used. Where she diverted from Mr. Green was her opinion as to whether that timestamp meant the search occurred at that time or did it occur sometime later. That's an opinion issue again, and Mr. Whiffen agrees it's an opinion issue in that regard. So now let's come to where we are for this motion and what was submitted by the Commonwealth. And I want to first go to the report of Ms. Hyde now.
He's so good. I just love, I love listening to him. He explains things. It's clear. You can understand it. Again, just a complete masterclass in being a lawyer, and someone that I would definitely inspire to be towards if I ever wanted to become a lawyer. And that's not to disparage anybody on Karen's team. I mean, Alan Jackson, complete inspiration. David Yannetti, complete inspiration. Liz Little, complete inspiration. But just to really watch this and the passion, and you got to keep in mind, it's all pro bono too. This is all pro bono. And to see that passion and fire come out of this man is just unbelievable. All right, let's keep playing through.
It's Exhibit 4 to the Commonwealth's motion. And it's entitled Digital Forensics Analysis Report. And there's been much said in the Commonwealth's argument this morning about allegations made by Mr. Green, which are all supported. Every single one supported with facts. But what the Commonwealth didn't tell the court is what the request was of Ms. Hyde. I just went through all the tools she used, why she used them, why she said it's best practices, why you use all these tools. What does she do now in December of 2024 to assist in the myopic approach of the Commonwealth to say, here's our studies, we only look at Cellebrite physical analyzer, and it's gone, the search is gone, right? And we know why it's gone, because Cellebrite, Mr. Whiffen, concedes that he went back and talked to the researchers, and what we have, Your Honor, is a total black box. And I'm going to point it out in a moment. Why is this no longer appearing on Cellebrite physical analyzer? We don't know the answer. All it is stated is a bald conclusory statement that it's no longer reliable. That's it. We don't know why it's no longer reliable, but we know it's gone. And Mr. Whiffen never says, even though it's gone in one, he doesn't even address the other 4 or 5 tools where it still appears. It still appears. Now to Ms. Hyde. Disquietingly, on page 3, look at the request, please. The request was to understand changes made in newer versions of Cellebrite Physical Analyzer to artifacts pertaining to the timeline of a Google search on January 29, 2022, namely House Long to Die in Cold. That is stunning. The request to her was simply to look at one tool that everybody knew by then Cellebrite had deleted in their program. She then looks at evidence analyzed, second paragraph. This full file system image was processed with Cellebrite Physical Analyzer, version blah, 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 decoding engine, etc. Where is her analysis of Axiom that was in her May 2023 report? Where is her analysis of Sanderson? Where is her other analysis that if she went and did it, she would have to say it's still there? So what she goes on to say is very interesting, but it's buried, and here's what it is on page 4. After she goes through and states what everybody knows is Cellebrite just went back and for some reason deleted it, she says under the chart, while manual analysis of the database still shows a 22740 AM ET timestamp, the determination in prior analyses and from Cellebrite is that this timestamp does not demonstrate that the URL was visited at the time of the last visit timestamp. So here she did a manual analysis, and it still shows up, but she doesn't explain the significance of that. If we want to talk about reliability, Your Honor, the real question should be the reliability of the prosecution's witnesses in Cellebrite Physical Analyzer.
So are you telling me that we should have a hearing?
Your Honor, there's no need to have a hearing,
No.
and here's why.
It's there.
There's no need for a hearing because there's no disagreement on the
Yep.
Daubert issues. The dispute over what is the interpretation of this data, what are the people's opinions, is never one for Daubert. If that were the case, there'd be a Daubert hearing on every expert because experts, almost by definition on each side, disagree on the opinions. We don't need a hearing, Your Honor, because they agree on the methodology.
Yep.
They
It's
agree
there.
that more tools are better. They agree that the difference is at the very end of the analysis, which is the opinion. So in terms of the issues with regard to Mr. Green's report, which is my final point to get to, there's been so many mischaracterizations by the Commonwealth this morning of what Mr. Green did and what he said. So what does he do? He says, and Your Honor, digital forensic analysts are the equivalent of a medical examiner. Their job is to apply the methodology that is agreed to. Their job is to use the tools, everybody agrees on it, and then they're to give opinions on what those mean. And everybody here has the same data, right? Everyone's got the same data that they're using, so there's no dispute over that. The Commonwealth said that there's no factual basis for what Mr. Green did. There's a factual basis for everything, and it's undisputed. So everyone has the same data, and this I call the NB postulate. And the NB postulate is, why are people using different tools, etc.? Is because nobody has the source code for the Apple phones. So you use these tools to try to help interpret what these source codes mean. And it's an accepted method.
Fucking Apple ain't helping you because they don't help with nothing. They don't help with nothing. That's why we have all these tools to extract data. They don't help with nothing.
To do it. But the data, once it's produced, and we have an issue about what happened before it got produced, but in terms of the methodology that was applied here in the tools, there is no disagreement. So what, Your Honor, would an evidentiary hearing do? We're just going to come in and have witnesses talk about their difference of opinion? That's not what a Daubert is for. There's no basis for an evidentiary hearing because there's no dispute over the methodology. I've done a lot of Daubert hearings. I've never even gotten past a motion, let alone an evidentiary hearing, where the experts don't disagree on the methodology. So what is it that caused Mr. Green to raise questions? And again, I said data forensic examiners are just like the medical examiners. They don't look at just the body of the medical examiner. They look at circumstances surrounding it and all information. Well, that's what digital forensic examiners do, and that's what Mr. Green did. So there's great criticism of Mr. Green from doing what is proper for a digital forensic person. And it's a bit of a camouflage, respectfully, because the December 2024 reports of the Commonwealth now myopically go down to...
Like Apple doesn't even work with the FBI. when they're trying to investigate things. They will not help them. They're just not about helping in cases. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Just one tool. So what did Mr. Green say that caused him to say, I think it strongly suggests that there's been manipulation here? He used the fact that there's no hash value for the data. That's conceded. And when there's a issue over hash value, every single digital forensic expert is going to raise concerns about the validity of the data. And Mr. Whiffen is one of them.
Real quick, I just did like a quick Google search. Just literally said Apple doesn't help in criminal cases. This statement is generally true. Apple typically does not directly assist law enforcement in accessing data on locked phones due to their strong encryption policies, meaning they cannot unlock a phone without the user's password, even if they presented a court order to do so, which has led significant controversy in criminal investigations. I think that's complete bullshit. I think it's complete bullshit. They absolutely have 100% access to their tools. Let's just give a general comparison. Okay, look what happened with the Cybertruck bombing in Las Vegas. Literally, Elon Musk, in 5 seconds flat, had the doors open, was working with the police departments. Tell me, those companies have access to everything that goes on within their company. They absolutely do. And Apple just does not help in anything in cases. And it's truly sad. It's truly sad. Okay. Wow. Cynthia, thank you so much. 10 gifted memberships. Welcome in new Go Squad members. That's 1 free month on Cynthia. And all I ask at the end of that month, and this is a $4.99 membership. All I ask at the end of the month, if you could just chip back in and sign back up for $1.99, it helps keep the channel going, keeps the lights on in the studio. Thank you so much for those 10 gifted. All right, let's get back to Bob Alessi's beatdown.
Who did that? Secondly, what Mr. Green pointed out on the issue of was this search deleted?
Memberships need to be on a, I think you have to do it via a desktop. And what you can do is go down and you'll hit, I believe, the money sign. There's a money sign and it will say membership. And when you go to membership, you can click on that and choose the level of membership that you want to contribute to. If you can't do it on a desktop, you can't do it through the YouTube app. You have to do it in a tab or how ironic, a search. And you will log in to your YouTube account there, and you would just go to my channel, LTL Media, and then you can sign up for a membership there. That's how that usually works. Oh, wow. Nancy, thank you so much. 20 gifted memberships. Welcome in 20 new Go Squad members. That's really big, Nancy. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Wow. Lots of generous gifting today. That's very, very kind of all of you. And I appreciate that. And it helps definitely support the channel. Wow. Thank you. Really appreciate that. All right, let's continue here. The verbal beatdown by Bob Alessi.
There were 4,056 searches on the phone of Ms. McCabe.
Laptop will work.
4,056. There was one deletion out of 4,056, and guess which one it was?
Let's go back. I got to hear that again. Here we go. It's the Jen McCabe deleted Google search. Here we go.
That there's been manipulation here. He used the fact that there's no hash value for the data. That's conceded. And when there's a issue over hash value, every single digital forensic expert is going to raise concerns about the validity of the data. And Mr. Whiffen is one of them who did that. Secondly, what Mr. Green pointed out on the issue of was this search deleted, there were 4,056 searches on the phone of Ms. McCabe. 4,056. There was one deletion out of 4,056, and guess which one it was?
Guess what?
House long to die in the cold. There are no odds that can happen randomly, that one search out of 4,056 is deleted. So what does Mr. Green say? He says that strongly suggests one of two things. Either there was user interaction deletion, or there was post-imaging manipulation of the data. He doesn't excuse individuals. He says user interaction or post-imaging. That is the job of a digital forensic person, to point that out and say that raises concern. The fact that there's only one deletion of a search out of 4,056, I think it's malpractice if a digital forensic examiner doesn't point that out.
Wow.
Another key thing he points out is an anomaly. The Commonwealth said there was a tab number for Hockomock Sports, and that they said it was the same tab number for how long to search or how long to die in a cold. But Mr. Green points out that's incorrect. They had two different tab numbers. So that theory of the prosecution can't be right. So
I was going to go up to this. Greg says the reason Apple does not help is because they don't allow anybody to see their source code. If they started to get involved in cases, then let me just see. Then they would have to prove how they confirmed it. Yeah, but dude, like it would just make. I get it. I understand what you're saying here. I get it. It's very annoying. Okay, I understand, but it would just make life so much easier in these cases. Don't you agree, Greg? I mean, you have to agree on that. If they weren't just such dicks all the time and they just gave up the information and helped out, it probably would help a lot more innocent people out, and it would probably put a lot more guilty people behind bars as well too. So you got to kind of look at it in that, in that way. And I'm sure you probably can agree with me. I get what you're saying, but I'm sure that you can probably agree with me. Wow, this is a lot of membership raining today. Stephanie, thank you so much. 5 gifted memberships. Enjoy that membership. And Brooklyn Rules MBA has also become a new member as well too. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, good stuff here. Let's keep. Oh yeah, see, Greg says yeah, he 100% agrees. I mean, it just would make life a lot easier, wouldn't it? It really would. Yeah, they have to use their own extraction tools, Mac. They have to use their own extraction tools to the information that they can get. That's how that all works. All right, let's keep going on here.
Mr. Green wasn't hurling accusations. He was doing what data forensic examiners do, is pointing out all these anomalies. These aren't things you normally see, and they're not explainable. Here's the last point I'll make, which there's also agreement. There's this deletion of this one search. Mr. Whiffen can't explain why. He says, well, maybe it was a spontaneous deletion. There's no such thing in data forensics as spontaneous, and he doesn't cite any. Maybe it's because the search didn't load. Maybe it's because there was bad connectivity at where this search occurred. Well, that's interesting because a harder thing to load, the image that came up with food, did load. So you got to have stronger connectivity to get an image that dense. So what Mr. Green simply points out is that doesn't make any sense either. That is the essence of Mr. Green's affidavit. And Your Honor, just to be clear, when we sent in the second affidavit of Mr. Green, we put in the cover, and Your Honor may not have gotten this, that it was to replace the first affidavit because there were some typos, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see 2 dates of the affidavits, and it's the later date, and I'm going to give you the specific one that controls.
Oh, I have both.
Okay, right. Yeah.
The second one on the body of it does not say it's a supplemental or anything. If it was in the cover letter, that's what they're both docketed, so they'll both remain
I was just
docketed.
going to say, we wanted to have them both there for whatever purpose Your Honor wanted, but there's been some question about why 2, and it's a simple explanation, one supersedes the other. So Your Honor, in terms of
So I'm just going to speed up a little bit here because I do have to work this afternoon. So I'm just going to bump this up a little bit. Bob's probably going to talk really, really fast because he does talk fast. But I do have to kind of move this along a little bit. Not that I want to leave everybody, but I do have to get to my day job here in a little bit. All right, let's keep playing through here.
And this will be the concluding part of my remarks. In terms of the allegation that Mr. Green relies upon technical support at Axiom, and he relies upon technical support of Axiom, and the statement that is just remarkable, that that's the basis for his expertise. Mr. Green makes very clear that he did his own analysis. He used the tools himself, but here's why he called Celebrite. At the time of trial, Celebrite had two versions of physical analyzer on the market at the same time. One physical analyzer 7 showed the 22740 timestamp. It showed it, and it showed it in a deleted state. But the recent one, the one that Celebrite updated 1 week before trial, didn't have it. So that was the Insights, spelled oddly, INSYETES. That didn't have it. So Mr. Green did what any good digital forensic person would do. He called up support and said, well, what's going on here? You got one that shows it, you got one that doesn't. But he did what the NIST standards, the National Institute of Standards, and that's attached to Mr. Green's affidavit, says that good digital examiners use multiple tools, and when they have questions or they see anomalies, you call up the program people, you talk to their technical support. That's not someone inexperienced and relying upon them. That is the proper methodology. So Mr. Green did that to corroborate and get explanation for what he found. So in sum, Your Honor, here is what is before the court and what is pertinent for this motion. What is pertinent is the inquiry under Polk, which Your Honor cited in your decision on Dr. Russell. It comes down to, is Mr. Green qualified? There's not even a contest. Second, is his methodology reliable? And Your Honor, those are the only two subjects that are ever proper for a Daubert hearing. Why would we have what will be a very long hearing? Now, Mr. Brennan suggests bringing in Mr. Whiffen. I've never heard of that happening in a Daubert hearing, where one party challenges the witness of the other, and then says, "No, by the way, I want to bring in my witness to show." That never happens in Daubert. It's the person who—
I wouldn't say never.
Well, let me take that back. Good point. I won't say never. It is so unusual to have that happen under these circumstances. And this is the key, Your Honor. Why would we have a hearing about whether his methodology is proper and reliable if all of the witnesses agree what the methodology is? So, Your Honor, in conclusion, I would urge the court to deny the motion of the Commonwealth to exclude Mr. Green on one of 6 data forensic issues. He's going to be testifying, obviously, at this trial, and I would urge—
I love that. He's going to be testifying at this trial. Nana, thank you so much for being a member for 13 months. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that.
urge Your Honor to not have the evidentiary hearing, because Your Honor has before you everything Your Honor needs to
Everybody
perform the
agree?
gatekeeping function. And again, it's almost all undisputed with exception of one thing, and that's the opinions of the expert, which is never proper. I will respectfully state that never is appropriate for a
He's
Daubert hearing.
not.
Thank
He's
you.
not his way out.
Okay, any follow-up, Mr. Brennan?
I do. A little bit of knowledge of forensic data analysis can be dangerous. So when you hear representations or arguments that Mr. Whiffen's opinion that there may have been a connectivity issue is undermined because there was a picture of food which is suggested through a application search, misunderstands the basic premise that that's a cache picture. And that is meant for the user of a phone, for the user experience. And so there is cache items that are available without connection that register and come up quicker from a different source while it's waiting for a search to be conducted. It's simple, it can be explained, it's science, it's data. So when you take a little bit of data and you twist it because you misunderstand it or you want to advocate, that is the danger, and that's why it's best left to experts. What the defense apparently is mistaken about is that using a number of tools does not substitute for methodology. You can use one tool, you can use 30 tools. They're all going to say on the timestamp that how long to die in the code occurred at 227 on that browser. That is the time that was open. That window was opened at 227. But you can't just look at 8 different tools that are all going to say the timestamp is the same. You have to look into the data and into the databases, knowledge seed, the history, and you have to determine what artifacts exist to show that occurred at that time. And when you do that in this process, it is clear that 227 starts counting after 6 a.m. in the morning. And so that's what Mr. Green doesn't do. He doesn't engage in methodology at all. He doesn't agree with methodology. He doesn't use it. The defense points to Ms. Hyde's report, how it's narrow. It's narrow because it's an addition to her 2023 report. Mr. Green has not written a report. He has not provided data. He has not provided that he has used methodology. He has not engaged in the process of studying the data. He made a couple of phone calls. And so you can't simply look at the timestamp and then give a reckless opinion not based on the methodologies. We still haven't seen a report from Mr. Green. There isn't. Because if he actually does the testing and takes a phone and tested his hypothesis, he would dispel his own hypothesis. And if he doesn't do that, we'll do that for him. There is no hashtag concern. And when the defense raises issues, postures, ideas, we never hear what the problem is. What is the hashtag done? Who manipulated it? And that is the MO. Blame anybody. Don't articulate who. Be like a ghost, evasive as possible, and then when it gets knocked down, just posit a new theory. The government offers to bring in Jessica Hyde next week or even with him at another time. Is it common? No, it's not. It's because the government has no fear of a hearing to help educate the court on the data science that is at play here. And so while we don't need to, we have no reluctance to. So there is a real accuracy on the fallacies that Mr. Green promotes in this case. And so we're happy to do it. We welcome it.
Okay. Did you want to say anything very briefly, Mr. Alessi?
In 60 seconds or less, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. The Commonwealth said a little knowledge is dangerous. I don't know what a hashtag is. I've never heard of what was just said as a hashtag. It's a hash value, and it's a very important concept to get right. With regard to the whole premise and point of my argument, Your Honor, that this is a difference of opinions, it was just made by the Commonwealth foreman. What was said, it's alleged that Mr. Green has reckless opinions. My point exactly, take away the reckless. They're going after his opinions, and it's been stated now by the Commonwealth itself. It's the opinions, and those are not proper.
Hey, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Well,
There are 4 exhibits that have been won.
thank you. So it sounds a lot like it may just be a disagreement in opinions, but for the Commonwealth, I will look more closely at your methodology arguments that were made today. If I decide that we need a hearing, an evidentiary hearing, and that I cannot decide this motion based on everything before me, I will let you know no later than Monday. Okay? So
She
we'll
already
keep
ruled
next
on
week and I'll let you know. All right. So, and not that I would exclude something simply because it takes a lot of time, but we really need to make sure we keep this case on track for the April 1st trial. So I have a question for the Commonwealth on where we stand in discovery. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the motion to recover expert related expenses.
Your Honor, we've introduced the discovery as we've gone along, try to give the defense as much notice as we can. I had anticipated having discovery finished last week. We've sent over most of our discovery last night, or in the process of being turned over. There was one further report. We've retained Dr. Wolf as a neurologist. I'm waiting for his report. He is away. So my expectations, I can have that report by Wednesday.
Okay.
Further, there was a witness interview earlier in the week. I'll have that report as well. My Rule 14 commitments are ongoing. They are involved.
Hank, I'm never prepared, Brennan.
Enormous amount
I
of time
get the report's late to you, Brennan.
over the months has been spent trying to be satisfied that I can account for all the discovery and make sure that the defense gets everything that I can as soon as I learn about it. We'll continue to investigate this case all the way to trial, but our discovery should be completed by Wednesday.
Does that include the analysis of the data from the Lexus?
That has all been turned over, or we're sending it over on link. There's something like 8 gigabytes on my expert, so it takes a long time to download. It was all sent to us yesterday, and it's all included.
All right.
The
So,
analysis is done. The accident reconstruction is done. Mr. Crosby, with expertise in bites and dog bites, his reports are in. Ms. Hyde and Mr. Whitman have further reports that have been provided. Ms. Hyde has one more that's outstanding. We may have it. I expected it last night. I did not review. And I think that accounts for. We've been through the entire amount of discovery that was prior. It's all been base numbers. It hadn't been before. It's marked as previously provided. I've made a very, very thorough accounting analysis with help of all of the information that isn't in those base numbers and provided everything that I've come across as soon as I come across it.
all right.
Continue to look
Excuse me.
all of our materials. There was an issue regarding a phone that we hired a third party to look through the phone and produce all Rule 14 discovery. I mentioned that my position was it was a very broad view that the assessor should look at. I was uncomfortable reporting to the court that the phone had been reviewed by somebody else, so I did it myself. And so I've gone through the entire phone, every email, every page, thousands, and I've provided not only Rule 14, but broad discovery. This went to a protective order this morning to the defense that they have anything that, from my perspective, from my experience.
Wait, whose phone did he go through? What? What did I just hear here? He went through someone's phone? What? What's going on here? What happened? Whose phone?
That I come across as soon as I come across it.
All right.
Continue to look through all of our materials. There was an issue regarding a phone that we hired a third party to look through the phone and produce all Rule 14 discovery. I mentioned that my position was it was a very broad view that the assessor should look at. I was uncomfortable reporting to the court that the phone had been reviewed by somebody else, so I did it myself. And so I've
What? He's a phone analyst expert now. He looked through Morrissey's phone. What? So now all of a sudden Hank is a phone analysis expert? What?
Gone through the entire phone, every email, every page, thousands, and I provided not only Rule 14, but broad discovery. This went to a protective order this morning to the defense, so they have anything that, from my perspective, from my experience, would be remotely important or interesting to them. Also, I've gone through, well beyond my obligation, emails of members of the district attorney's office, and that continues. I have another production as well. I wouldn't call it Rule 14 because it's not necessarily statements of witnesses, but again, I've taken a very,
This place
very
is so corrupt.
local and broad view of what I would potentially want if I was defending the case. And I've provided that again on the seal today.
All right.
And so we do not have an official discovery order, but I'd like the defense to have the discovery meet 30 days after I complete mine, which will be next week.
Okay.
We filed, but I did not see on the docket, or we sent in, we did not file a motion for clarification, and Your Honor did not mention that as an important notice that we had sent in because I am greatly respecting the April 1st trial date and there's work to be done. And so I would like to address that motion to clarify when appropriate with the court.
Okay. All right. I'll need some time to review this, obviously.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. That's great. So the Commonwealth expects to be ready for trial April 1st.
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. So now let's just take a look at a preview, if you will, of the defendant's motion to recover expert-related expenses from the Commonwealth. Okay. I see there's a written opposition that I just received. We're not going to hear this motion today because I didn't have the opposition. But one of the things that I'm hoping you can tell me before we hear this, all right, there are a couple of things. Let me just, in this motion, there's a footnote that references, so this motion from the Commonwealth was filed, from the defendant was filed on January 23rd. So more than a week ago, in the motion, I believe, is a footnote that highlights a pending motion to dismiss. I need that motion to dismiss. We need to get this moving. When will that? Well, I'd like that filed next week so we can.
That just kind of tells you there right there how she's going to rule on that, right? I need the motion to defense. We got to get this moving. I mean, if that's not telling that she's a little biased about this motion to dismiss, there's your preview right there. We got to get this going. And she's going to look at it and be like, no.
Hear it next week.
The reason that we haven't
Speed this up a little
finalized
bit.
it, the reason we haven't put the full contours on that motion is because we haven't.
Yeah, no, Laura, thank you. Good to see you.
To figure out exactly what the parameters of our motion to dismiss are until we know exactly what Commonwealth is putting in front of us in terms of the second trial. But as soon as we get that, we think that we have the grounds to bring that motion relatively quickly thereafter.
So you expect to have everything to the defendants by Wednesday?
I do, and really what's missing is a report from a neurologist, a witness interview that is really inconsequential. And Ms. Hyde has a report regarding a phone. That's all that's really left for discovery. So that's all I can say.
All right. So if you get it by Wednesday, we're here Thursday and Friday. I'd really like to see something by Friday. You've obviously been working on it, even if we end up having to do it in piecemeal. So
we've been thinking about it, but we have not. I don't know what you mean by working on it. Yes, obviously we're working that direction, but Your Honor, there's no way for us to reasonably get that done by Friday. That's just, there's so many other things that we're dealing with, including hearings like this that keep coming up over and over and over. I'm not, the court knows we don't drag our feet.
Thank you for coming.
I just can't promise that we can get it done by Friday. We are working on it. We're not.
So
there's no strategy for us waiting. I promise you.
Be prepared to discuss it next Friday. I will be looking for it very shortly thereafter, and we will have a hearing on it very shortly. Time to respond.
Understood.
So we need to come up with a scheduling order, or I've got a scheduling order that we need to discuss. But regarding this motion, what I need to know before I hear the motion on the expert-related expenses is what sort of protocol you all worked out. Maybe it's in the Commonwealth's opposition that I just saw. What sort of protocol was worked out? Who was notified?
All I can say is if you want to watch it, it's there on the internet. You can watch it at your own speed. There's like 10 more minutes left to this hearing anyway. But I do have a day job and I have to get going here pretty soon. So I apologize. Just the way it's going to be.
What the arrangements were, how this all was set into play, and why there was a violation.
I can certainly brief that. But we addressed it pretty significantly in our motion in terms of the conversations that were had, the expectations that we had, the protocol in terms of getting our expert out there. For
What the agreement was, right? People don't just show up for the other side's expert. I just need to know what the agreement was for your expert to view this on that date.
Most of this was reduced to email. I think it'd be
Okay, so
probably
put
a
it-
little bit more accurate for me to just go back and file a supplemental brief.
Yeah, so I need all that information. Such egregious conduct.
Sure. Okay. I'll submit this. That won't take very long, and I'll.
Because then we'll address this next week.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. If we do not have an evidentiary Daubert hearing, do we need both days, or does it make sense to schedule?
I think this is just going to be a lot of scheduling stuff right now. So, I think we've gotten through the majority of the hearing. So I'm going to have to set pause here. I do have to get going. I have to get to my day job. Unfortunately, a job that I hate, but it pays the bills. And that's something that I'm definitely going to be working on here in 2025 is looking for a new jobby job. Let me just go through some of these again. I just want to get to this. Becky, thank you so much for being a 3-month member. Bino from Ireland with the $6 pound donation. Appreciate that. Alessi is my hero, has become a new YouTube member. Alessi's Pros, $5 super chat. I appreciate that. Cynthia, wow, big gifted memberships, 10 new memberships. Nancy turns around and one-ups Cynthia, I think all in good fun, and gifted 20 memberships. I appreciate that. Stephanie comes back with 5 gifted memberships. We have Brooklyn, a new member. Nancy became a new member. Nana used her membership highlight. She's been a 13-month member. And Melissa became a new member as well. Lots of memberships today. Lots of memberships today. I appreciate that. Appreciate all the Cash Apps, the Venmos, the PayPals that came in as well, and the complete support of this channel. I plan on getting back into my studio this week and doing some lives from there. I know I want to get Mazza Media back in there, and we'll be doing an upcoming show with Mike from the Young Jerks, Mazza Media, and also Nan Gallagher, the lawyer that was on Young Jerks. I'm going to have her on here pretty soon as well too. So, all right, I have to head out. I appreciate everybody hanging out on this Saturday morning. It was a lot of fun to go through and watch Bob Alessi give a verbal beatdown to one Hank Brennan. And as we found out, Richard Green is qualified enough to testify and not have to go through another annoying hearing. So that is it. I'm going to head out. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I would appreciate it. And I will talk to everybody as soon as I can. Have a great day, everybody. Have an amazing Saturday. And I hope the rest of your weekend is great. Talk to you soon. Thank you for all the support. Love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.